We're not talking about Europe, we're not talking about our local area, we're talking about the entire world. We are one of the most overpopulated countries in the world, and according to their figures, we have 410 people per square kilometre. Bearing in mind 90% of international migrants come to England, so this only covers England. We have 410 people per square kilometre, which makes us the 8th most crowded country in the world. We're 3.5 times as crowded as France. So when you hear people on the news or in your local pub or anywhere talking about we are taking too many people and we are doing too much, that's because we're already crowded, we're overcrowded, we don't have enough housing, we don't have enough cheap housing, council stock has pretty much been sold off. 15 years ago you would be on a council waiting list from beginning to end for weeks, maybe months. I came down to Salford from Edinburgh in 1996, and I was on the council's waiting list for 3 weeks before I got offered a 2-bedroom flat. The current waiting list is 3 years plus, unless you have an exceptional reason. So if we're taking in hundreds of thousands extra every year, how can we do it on an island that is already more overcrowded than any other country except for 7? That doesn't make sense to me. That doesn't make sense to my politics, my common sense. That it just seems outrageous that we have people living on the streets, people that were born in this country, people we owe an allegiance to, people that have paid tax, people whose parents and grandparents have paid tax, and they're sleeping on the streets. And what are we as a society doing? We're bypassing them and we're giving much needed council accommodation to people that are coming from Africa. I don't understand that. Nobody can explain that to me. Why do I owe somebody from Eritrea more of a duty to look after them than I do a soldier that's fought for this country? Where does that make sense? So I've put the rest of Migration Watch UK's front page on migration statistics, and the one thing that jumps out to me most is the first part, which is 85% of population growth since 2000 is migrants and their offspring, so foreign-born parents coming to this country and having children. So you add the people coming to the country and their children, and since 2000, 85% of the population increase in the UK has been them. 85% of our population increase. That's mind-blowing. That's staggering. I had not expected a figure like that. I thought it would have been somewhere like 40-50%. So 15% is, wow, 15% is the population increase from those that reside here, and 85% is those that come here. Wow. So this is the next part that astonished me from Migration Watch UK's website. Again, as I said at the beginning, they aren't politically affiliated, and they try to make their website and the statistics on it to be non-political. And as you can read, the first line, I think, explains what goes after it. On the other hand, it now seems beyond doubt that migration is a considerable cost to the exchequer. Even on assumptions favourable to migrants, the most recent and extensive academic research found that migration from 1995 to 2011 had cost the taxpayer over 110 billion, that is about 18 million per day. This derived from the relatively poor employment rate of migrants overall, lower wages for some particular groups, and the cost of providing public services and benefits. All of these factors remain in place to the present. And that's the main point. That is the fundamental underpinning of what should be the consideration in this discussion. We are a country that very nearly faced utter collapse when the banks collapsed in 2007 and 8. All I deal with all day is banking issues, and one of the main things I've had to look at time and time again for reports that I write is how much the collapse cost the UK. We had 500 billion in debt in 2007. That's now 1.5 trillion. So it's estimated that the collapse has cost the UK 1 trillion in debt. Then on top of that, there's the amount of money that we've lost from the economy as a consequence of the economy collapsing. It's astonishing how little money this country has got compared to what it should have. So why are we spending £18 million per day on migrants? Why are we spending £55 million a day on the EU? If you have a look through this website, you'll see the figures. They're astonishing, and they're academic figures, and they point to the academic reports that they derive their figures from. We can't afford to keep bringing people to this country. The people that are living on the streets and that are begging on the streets, they need somewhere to live. If we're about to open up this country to tens of thousands of other migrants, where are they going to live? What are we going to do with the people that are already on the streets? What are we going to do with people that are about to be on the streets? You know, the majority of people that are homeless in the definition of homeless, they're not on the streets, they're living on friends' sofas, and they're sofa hopping, but they're always one day away from being on the streets. In Manchester, where I live, you know, I walk past people that are sleeping in the streets every day. I saw one guy, he was about 18, and he was on the streets sleeping on the corner of Piccadilly Gardens for a year. In the snow, in the rain, he was there every day. He's just got himself into a homeless hostel, and he hates it there. That, you know, it's filled with criminals and people that are out on parole. He can't get anywhere to live, and if he can't get anywhere to live 2 years after being made homeless, where are we going to put all of these migrants? And that goes back to the question that we keep saying. If we had a points-based system, let refugees in because we've got to, but on migration we need to stop just taking everybody. During the election, I actually heard somebody saying that we should just have open borders, and I can't understand the thinking of that behind. Why would somebody want to do that? We have an NHS that is forever on the brink of collapse. It's the greatest health service in the world, But it's underfunded because medicines are getting more expensive, equipment is getting more updated on a daily basis, so that forever having to buy the latest equipment to always be one step ahead. So if we keep bringing people into the country that aren't putting money into the system, who's going to pay for the health? If we keep filling our schools with people that can't speak English, so the teachers are having to spend more time on these fewer people rather than the greater number of people that are already there that can speak English,